Hello and welcome to my stream today. I hope I'm live now. I just turned it on. Let me see real quick if I can find myself on YouTube at least. Just 1 second. I still don't trust the technology. And yes, I'm online. Cool. Amazing. All right, let me pull that over. And well, today we're going to continue the live coding session that I've started. Was it last week? I think it was last week, Wednesday last week. And we're going to go through a couple of things. It is going to be rough. So this is not prepared at all. This is not going to be a tutorial, but we will be building something while we're looking at the documentation and finding out together how it actually works. And to do that, I'm going to just real quick, I'm going to share my screen. Let me see. Where are we? Share screen, entire screen. I'm going to share this one. And okay, gonna pull it up. Here we go. Do it like this. We've got a new layout in StreamYard. So I can be down in the corner. And here we go. And we've got already have the first few people in the chat. Hey, Harish, nice to meet you. Good to see you're here. Jones, I remember seeing you yesterday. Since you're on LinkedIn, I'm also broadcasting this on YouTube. But the funny thing is you are on LinkedIn and I can actually see your chat. And that's the great thing. That didn't work before. So apparently you don't have to come to YouTube anymore to be able to watch. So thanks for joining. I remember your name from yesterday, actually. Thanks for joining again. Milad is here as well. Hey, Milad. Sean is here. Thank you for joining. We've got AWS Geeks TN. That's Tunisia, right? If I remember correctly, you're from Tunisia. Dora, exactly. Dora, nice to see you all. Thanks for joining again. Just real quick again, my name's Dennis. I'm a developer. Too quick. Okay, let me slow down. Slow down, Dennis. All right. My name's Dennis. I'm a developer advocate with Amazon Web Services. Let me make myself a little bigger just for now. I'm with AWS. I used to be a software engineer for many years. Then I joined AWS as a solutions architect a couple of years ago. And now I'm working as a developer advocate. And as a developer advocate, one of the things I do really is try to understand how to work with AWS, how building with AWS feels like for myself, but also to help others learn about building on AWS, how to build on AWS. But to be able to do that, I really need to be touching it myself all the time. And I decided to do this series for two purposes. First of all, so that you can see how certain things work on AWS, but at the same time for myself to be able to stay in touch with the technology, to really be able to understand how it works for you, and to be able to maybe even tell our own folks, tell people at AWS, there might be that thing that you could maybe even improve. Let's have a look at the chat. Yeah, Jones, you were at the game day yesterday. We ran a game day, and we had more than 100 attendees, which was really nice yesterday. And here's a question by Harish. Can we use S3 for build repository? I'm not entirely sure I understand what you mean. Maybe you can rephrase the question in the chat real quick so that I can try and answer it. But thanks anyway. If you have any questions, everyone, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'm going to try to answer them. Now, real quick for technology, because I do have a pen somewhere. Here we go. I do have this pen and I have this tablet. And let me pull up my screen again to test if this still works. No, it doesn't. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen for whatever reason. That's Control X. I'm on the wrong screen because I want to paint on my screen. And for some reason, it uses the wrong screen. I want to use this one. Let me see. Here we go. All right. And it is on the wrong one again. Shh. Damn it. That's technology. When I want it to work, well, if I move the mouse, it does work, but I cannot, as you can see, I cannot paint using the mouse. But my pen, unfortunately, my pen is on the wrong side. I'll fix that real quick. Oh, just 1 second. Just 1 second. Things are showing up that I don't want. Go away. Here we go. My tablet settings. Let me check my tablet settings. I'll do that. Try and find my tablet settings. Here we go. So these are my tablet settings, and I want display 1 to be my work area. Is it this one? Let me see. No, this is the wrong one. Take the other one. Here we go. All right, cool. So now I'm actually able to write and paint here. Cool. Okay, I wanted to set that up. Just real quick. To the question that Harish asked right here, can we use S3 for build repository? We have an answer by Milad who says use AWS code commit for build repository. So, okay, if the question by Harish is really about a code repository, what to use as a code repository, I would really suggest to do what Milad says, either use AWS code commit, which is our own Git code repository, or use something like GitHub or GitLab. I would not use S3. You can use S3 for backups. It is well suited for that, but it's not the best to run your code repository. So as Milad said here, please use either AWS AWS code commit. That's basically your private Git repository or your private Git repositories on AWS, or you can also use GitHub or GitLab or whatever else you want to use, and even access it from AWS, from your pipeline inside of AWS. Cool. So thanks for the question. Thanks for the answer, Milad. Good. All right. So just real quick for those new to the show, this is the second episode, and it doesn't really matter if you missed the first one. What I did really was set up something very simple, a very simple event-based serverless application, which doesn't do very much. I did that in the console, and then I started transferring that to a CDK application. Let's have a look at. Okay, let's have a look at what that was. What we do have is an S3 bucket. Okay, I can't paint or write even with a pen, as you can see. And whenever somebody puts a file into this S3 bucket, we trigger something that then is supposed to trigger a step function. Step function. Here we go. All right. So for this to work, we are using EventBridge. Which basically is a service that that provides service buses, and the default bus picks up every event that happens inside of your AWS account. So whenever somebody does something through the API in AWS, EventBridge can pick that up. And we set up a trail, a specific so-called CloudTrail log. which specifically monitors this bucket. And whenever someone uploads something to the bucket, it basically puts an event on EventBridge. And then we have a rule. We have an EventBridge rule or an event rule that checks if it actually is an event that should be put forward to start a step function. Let me have a look at the chat real quick. Dora asks, can we automate configuration on AWS just like we do with Ansible in the real life, but in AWS managed service? Yes, we can. And actually, today I'm going to show how that works, at least in part. Maybe I'm able to answer the question or at least give you an impression of how that can work with AWS. And Jones actually answered to that question. You could use Cloudformation if you want to do complex stack. Otherwise, you can use step functions, and they have good invocations for initial setup. Today, we're not going to use Cloudformation. We're going to use the AWS CDK, the Cloud Development Kit, which actually translates into Cloudformation in the backend. So we are going to use what is called, and I'll put that up here, infrastructure as code, very often abbreviated as IAC. So we are going to do exactly that. We're going to set up our infrastructure using code, which then can be versioned. You can use your tooling. You can do static code analysis. You can test it, and you can deploy it to as many accounts as you want. So let me go back real quick. Last time I set up everything, all the things I just painted on the screen, I set up everything through the console. And in the second step, I started recreating it using the AWS CDK. And now let me go here real quick. Okay, it looks like I've got a Cloud9 instance over here. Cloud9 basically is an IDE, an integrated development environment in the cloud, and that runs on an EC2 instance, which automatically turns off after a while when I don't use it. So I had it open for quite some time without using it. So it actually shut down, but it's in the process of restarting so that I can work in the IDE. And just real quick, maybe let's go into Cloudformation while that is doing that. And Cloudformation is the AWS native. Yeah, exactly. Cloudformation is basically just like Terraform, but it's integrated into AWS. It is native to AWS, but you can use Terraform instead of Cloudformation. And you can even use the CDK, the Cloud Development Script, to create Terraform modules. There is an, let me see, there's a CDK for Terraform. That actually is a thing by HashiCorp. So there even is a version for Terraform, and Cloudformation is very similar to Terraform, with the important difference that Cloudformation directly integrates with AWS. So, for example, you can do things like the drift detection. So have Cloudformation try to figure out if the infrastructure that you deployed through code has been modified outside of that code. So if somebody went in and changed something manually, that's called drift. And Cloudformation is able to do drift detection to actually tell you if your infrastructure is in the state it should be in, or if it has changed. We got another answer here by Thorsten. Thorsten, nice to see you. Good dear here. Terraform is another IAC tool, so an infrastructure as code tool. You can choose from Cloudformation, Terraform, CDK, CDK for Terraform, or others. Exactly. And I'm going to go to Cloudformation real quick. What we do have in Cloudformation is something called stacks. And a stack includes the infrastructure definition and maybe also the application code that you want to deploy. You can have multiple stacks. Very often, you even have multiple stacks for one application, with one stack being the infrastructure, like the networking and the database and so forth, and another stack being the actual application deployment. So right now, we do have Cloudformation stacks, and you can see I have two up here, one being my Cloud9 stack, and this is a stack that had been set up by AWS when I started my, oh, come on, when I started my Cloud9 instance. I'll go back to the dashboard now real quick. When I started my Cloud9 instance, this has been deployed through infrastructure as code as well. Oh, I'm in the wrong account. That's why it doesn't work. Let me do that real quick. I need my account ID, and I want to use this account, switch role. Here we go. Okay. So my Cloud9 environment actually has been set up when I provisioned it. It has been set up using infrastructure as code. Hey, Shadi, good to see you. So I'm gonna reload this because I've been signed out. I'm signed in right now. So this is the stack that has been automatically created for my IDE, and this is the stack that I am using for my actual application. And this stack is being created. Now let's open the IDE again real quick. This stack has been created using this piece of code. And this is where it gets interesting. Just real quick, there's... Okay, Shadi, just real quick for you, we don't provide any dumps here. So if you are looking to pass the exam, and I really wish you a lot of luck, I'm sure you'll do a great job, but we will not provide any dumps in this channel. And please, everyone, let's just not go there and ask these kinds of questions. There are training opportunities, and I'm going to do that real quick. AWS certification practice test. There is something that you can do. And here's the link. I'm going to post that in the chat. You're going to find a lot of preparation material there, including some practice questions, which are very similar to what you can expect during the real certification. Cool. So back to the topic. This is my stack. As you can see, it's even called stack in CDK. CDK, as I said, CDK stands for CDK stands for Cloud Development Kit. Right? So I'm using CDK here, and I'm using Python as a language. The CDK can be programmed in different languages. You can use TypeScript, you can use C# or Java or Python. And in the new version that's coming up, it's currently in developer preview, you can actually use Go as well. So the CDK can be programmed in different languages. I'm using Python for simplicity reasons, but also because I never used Python to program the CDK. So that's a learning experience for me too. We've got a question here by Jones. Have you faced the storage issues on Cloud9? I've been increasing EBS, but Node module eat up the storage every time. Any hack for it? So maybe a quick question, and this really is a tangent. I'm not going to go too deeply in there. When Cloud9 is being set up, it automatically has just 10 gigabytes of hard drive space. You can increase that, and we will certainly quite soon come to a point where we need to do that, and I'm going to show how that works. But when it comes to Node modules, I mean, the thing is they do eat up a lot of space. So if you use Node, and if you use different Node modules, you probably have to download a lot of stuff onto the instance, and you just need to make sure that you provision a hard drive that is large enough for that. So there's no hack. I don't see any hack to minimize the size of Node modules. This is just what you have to deal with. On the other hand, I mean, a couple of gigabytes, an EBS volume with a couple more gigabytes isn't that expensive. Actually, let me look at EC2 real quick. I think the default is 10 gigabytes. Let me have a look at my volumes. Well, I have this one. Yeah, it's 10 gigabytes. This is my Cloud9 volume. I'll give it a name real quick, Cloud9. And that's the volume that has automatically been created and attached to my Cloud9 instance. It's 10 gigabytes, but I will probably increase that to 30 or 40 gigabytes, maybe today, maybe next week. So cool. Hey, Jordan, nice to see you again. Hey, Locust, good day to you too. Real quick, Milad, the advantage of CDK to CloudFormation really is that for CloudFormation, you have to write JSON or YAML templates. This is okay, but at some point, this becomes a lot of work. The more resources you have, the more resources you have to build in your templates. And at some point in time, the complexity can become quite overwhelming. Using CDK can help with that in a variety of ways. I'm going to get into that in a minute. The second issue with CloudFormation is the fact that you really have to define every resource at its very basic level. And if resources need to play together, like if a Lambda function, for instance, needs permissions to write into a DynamoDB table, you also have to set up, sorry, you also manually have to set up all the permissions and make sure that everything fits together. And this can be a very tedious thing. So what CDK does, it helps with both the complexity, but also with the fact that you can use something which is more abstract. So what I'm doing here is I'm simply saying, I need an S3 bucket. And I want this S3 bucket to block public access, and I want it to be encrypted. I can do the same thing in CloudFormation. And in fact, let me, where's my terminal? Let me open up my terminal again. View. Where's my terminal? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll use this one. Here we go. All right. Right here, I've got the bucket and I've got a trail. And I'm not going to look at the trail right now. What I'm going to do is just say CDK Synth. And what this command does is it uses the... Okay, I'm in the wrong directory, and I haven't done some housework. And in the chat, Jones as well as Torsten are good at giving a good explanation of the benefits. I'm going to set something up here real quick. So I've got to go into my app, and then I also have to go into my virtual Python environment source. So here we go. Okay, let me clear that real quick. Now let's CDK Synth. I can't type. CDK Synth. And if I scroll back up here, this basically, what you can see here is the YAML definition of the CloudFormation stack that has been created by this CDK application. So what it's doing here, this thing, we're looking specifically at this one. This command is creating a bucket. So a resource of type S3 bucket with the property bucket encryption, which we set here, to server-side encryption configuration, server-side encryption by default using AES 256. And it also does public access block configuration, setting all the 4 flags for the public access configuration to true. And this basically 1 or 4 lines of code produces this whole thing, plus some additional information like the update replace policy, the deletion policy, and some metadata. So this whole resource is being created by these few lines of code. And this is where you really can see the benefit of CDK, because the configuration of some resources in Cloudformation, in a Cloudformation template, can mean you have to write a lot. You really have to think about a lot of things. And CDK helps you abstract away from that. You simply say, I want to create a new bucket with public access blocked and encryption. And it creates all of that. And now I'm going to do the next step, looking at this line. This is creating a CloudTrail trail. But if you have worked with CloudTrail before, a trail needs a lot of additional things. So a trail needs to store the data, the logs, into an S3 bucket. This S3 bucket needs to be created. CloudTrail needs permissions to actually write into that trail, and so forth. So you have to create a lot of resources just for this one trail to work. And I'm going to show you these resources over here right now. You can see we've got the MyTrail bucket. This is another S3 bucket that is automatically being created for CloudTrail. And we also have the MyTrail S3 policy, which is an S3 bucket policy. And this is all the permissions that are needed so that CloudTrail, the service, can actually write into that bucket. And then we also have the trail itself down here, which is the actual CloudTrail trail with a number of properties. It's logging. It's logging into this bucket. It has certain things enabled, like log file validation. It's using global service events. It has dependencies and so forth. So all these lines starting up here, all these lines are being created. Oh, even further down. All these lines, all the way to down here, are being created by this one single command. And this is one of the large benefits of CDK. In CDK, you can define so-called constructs. And each of those constructs can then create simple or very complex resources where everything is defined, where you have best practices built in, you have patterns built in. I can say in one single line of CDK code, I could say I want a whole Kubernetes cluster on top of Amazon EKS with a load balancer and a DNS entry and everything that you need. That could be done in one single line of code. And the great thing, and that is what Torsten says here, these constructs, you can build your own constructs. You can build your own components, your own set of resources, and reuse them in other applications. So imagine in your company, you have a team that takes care of all the networking, that takes care of all the firewalls and the VPN access and maybe a direct connect and so forth. And they take care of everything. And if they want every team in the company to be able to use the same networking configuration, they can just create a CDK construct, publish it internally as a library, and every team can just use that construct. Just reference that construct, use it as a dependency, and just use the networking configuration that has been defined by the central networking team. And this is how CDK really helps simplify deployment of infrastructure as code. And the second thing is it's a full-blown programming language. So it uses full-blown programming languages. So you can use all your tools for that. And you can even use logic like conditional logic or all kinds of things that you can't use if you define a stack using YAML. And that's the benefit of it. I hope that answers the question. Cool. So I'm going to clear that real quick. And I already walked through what we have. We do have the right here. Oh, where are we? We do have, this is the bucket. This here is our CloudTrail trail. So that's basically our log of activities. For those who were here last time, what I did is I didn't use the default trail because the default trail logs, and I'm going to scroll back up here. The default trail logs, where do we have it? It logs all regions. It includes global service events, and it logs all the management events. But what I want to do with this log is really just, this log should really just monitor activity in this bucket. So I don't want it to capture all events inside of my AWS account across all regions. I only want this log to capture activity in this bucket. And for this, I'm going back. For this, I'm going to go back to CloudTrail because last time we set up this trail manually. Let's have a look. This is the one. This is the one that CDK has just created. You can see here my app stack. That's what my stack is called. My trail and a number. And if we go here, you can see this is exactly the name of the resource, my trail with this number. So this is the trail that has been created by CDK. This one is the trail that we set up last time manually with the configuration that we want. Let's have a look. So what it does, it is a multi-region trail, but it has log file validation disabled because I don't want to retain the logs and be able to validate them. I just want to be able to know when something happens in my bucket. It doesn't use encryption, but it doesn't log management events. And CloudTrail by default does log management events. I don't want to log management events. And management events are things like a new bucket has been created, or a new user has been created, or an EC2 instance has been started. I'm not interested in all these things. I'm only interested in data events inside of S3, inside of a specific bucket. I only want these events. And in that case, I even only want the write events. I don't want the read events. So for this, I need to make a few changes to the trail that I've defined in CDK. Because as it is right now, and when I go back to my trails and pick the one that my stack created, let me open this one. In here, you can see it does log all API activity, but it doesn't collect data events. So I have to turn that around. I need to configure this one. And this is one of the things that's very important with CDK constructs. For a default setup with everything you need to get it running, it is very simple to use, but you're still able to change everything. You're still able to modify so that it actually does what you want it to do. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few more things here. And to do that, I'm going to open up the documentation. AWS CDK Python reference. Here we go. Let's have a look at CloudTrail. AWS CloudTrail. Here we go. Let's look into this and have a look at the package overview. So This is the AWS CloudTrail construct library. Just real quick, what we did already is just that. We created a trail using the CloudTrail package, gave it the scope, and gave it a name. And that's exactly what we did here. And that's all we need to set up a default trail with all the default settings. Now I'm going to have a look at the questions real quick. We've got a question by Jones. How about having S3 event triggers to Lambda and SQS instead of CloudTrail? That's an option, and we talked about this last time. You can, inside of S3, you can use S3 event notification, which is built into S3 to trigger Lambda functions, SQS queues, or put something on an SNS topic. But what you cannot do is directly trigger a step function process. So the only things available, and I'm going to show you that real quick, in S3, let's go to my bucket. Let's have a look at the bucket. This is the bucket that has been created by my stack. If I look at properties, make this a little larger. Properties, if I scroll all the way down, you can see over here we have event notifications. And that is a very simple way to create automation based on files when they're created or updated or deleted. But if I create an event notification and I scroll all the way down, I can say event types like all object create events, or and I can scroll down. I've got a number of possible destinations. I can invoke a Lambda function. I can put a message on an SNS topic, or I can put a message on an SQS queue. But I can't trigger a step function. And this is what I want to do here. I want to trigger a step function. And with CloudTrail, with EventBridge, I can trigger all kinds of things, including step functions. And this is a reason why I'm not using S3 event notifications here. This is the reason why I set up an actual CloudTrail log. It's a little bit of additional work, but the nice thing is, once I have that set up, I can create event rules that can trigger all kinds of integrations, way beyond Lambda functions, SQS, and SNS. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Okay, cool. Let's look back at the documentation. What I'm doing right now is I'm setting up a trail. What I also want to do is, let's have a look. What I also want to do is I don't want it to be multi-regional. I'm only interested in my region, which in this case, well, we're global here because we're in S3, but I'm only interested in the region that I'm in, that is Frankfurt. So let's just pick that is multi-region. Add that here and set it to false. Next. Do I want to include global service events? And global service events are things like, here we've got it up here, things like IAM, Identity and Access Management, AWS STS, AWS CloudFront, Route 53, and so forth. These are global services that are not bound to a specific region. They are global, and I don't want to include them. So I'm just gonna add this. And now if I'm gonna do a CDK synth real quick. I'm gonna remove that in a second. This distracts me. Let's do a CDK synth real quick. And now we can see for our trail, where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Here's my trail. And as you can see now, oh, I didn't save. I should have saved. Do the CDK synth again. And just real quick, npm use, which one was it? I've installed the other one. I've installed 16.3.0, use 16.3.0. npm, wasn't it use? npm help. Oh, it's not npm, it's nvm use 16.3.0. Here we go. So I'm using this one now instead of that one because CDK version, CDK is supported by this one. And let me do the CDK Synth again. Here we go. I'll scroll back up. Here's my trail. And now it has include global service events set to false. That's what we've got here. And is multi-region trail set to false. So with these two lines, I basically was able to change certain attributes of this trail. And that's what I'm going to do now with the other ones. Let's have a look. So the event types that I want. Now I can say management events. Here we go. Management events equals. And right here, we can say we've got read-write type read-only. So there probably are other types. I'm going to look into that real quick. We've got the actual documentation here. So the trail has management events, read-write type. And you can see we've got read-write type all, none, read-only, write-only. So all is read-write, none is nothing. We want nothing. We don't want any management events. So the read-write type management events equals CloudTrail read-write type none. Now we're telling CloudTrail that we don't want the management events. If I try to deploy this now, this is not going to work because I'm not logging data events either. So this CloudTrail wouldn't be logging anything. So this would lead to an error. A CloudTrail trail needs to log something. So I do have to add the data events as well. Hey, Flowlight, thanks for joining. You're not late. We just started. Oh, we started 43 minutes ago already. Doesn't matter at all. So we're in the middle of customizing a predefined CloudTrail that we created using CDK. So we don't want the management events, but we do want the data events. Let me see. Let me see. Include global service events. No. Management events. All right. So we need to add an event selector. Let me go back to the overview real quick, to the package overview, because the next thing we need to do is add an event selector. And this is how you define the events that you actually want to use. We've got it down here. We've got the trail, and then we say trail add S3 event selector. So we've got it here. Now let's say trail add S3 event selector. And this takes, have a look at the documentation again. This method takes a number of things. It takes a data resource type. It takes data resource values. And it takes a read-write type and a couple of more things. So okay, so we need a data resource type. Oh, Alexa thought I was talking to her. All right. Alexa, stop. Okay, so data resource type. And in this case, we need to use a data resource type. And this is going to be S3. So CloudTrail data resource type S3 object. Oh, is that right? Yeah, S3 object. So our resource type is going to be S3 object. Next, we're going to give it the read-write type. If you remember, we only want the write operations. We don't want the read operations. So the read-write type over here is of type read-write type. And that's the same that, no, that's a different than we had before, but I can just use that read-write type. And this is going to be write only. Here we go. And then we need, the third thing we need is the data resource values. And this is the list of data resource ARNs, Amazon resource names, to include in logging. So this is the ARN of the specific bucket that we want to monitor. So my data resource values are, and this is a sequence of strings. And that should include my bucket. Now, how do I get the ARN of my bucket? Because the bucket is automatically created by CDK or by Cloudformation through CDK. But what I can do is I can take the bucket that I created up there, and this bucket has a couple of attributes. So if I go into the documentation, down to S3, all the way down to S3, here we go. Open that in a new tab. So this is S3, and the bucket has the attribute. Oh, where are we? Where are we? These are the methods. These are the methods. There are tons of methods. And, oh, come on. Here are the attributes. And the bucket has an attribute, bucket ARN. So all I need to do right here is really say bucket ARN. By doing this, this trail knows that it should log all write events from this bucket. Let's have a look. CDK Synth. Look at what it does. So we have an error. Unexpected keyword, data resource type. So what I'm doing here is not entirely correct. Let me see. That's up here. Are we using the AWS Lambda event selector? No, it's, oh, give me a second. Am I right? S3 event selector. I'm looking for S3 event selector. That's here, not the Lambda event selector. I'm looking for the S3 event selector. Oh, yes, I took the wrong one. S3 event selector, that needs an S3 selector. Okay, let me go there real quick. I looked at the wrong documentation. That real quick. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, we need an S3 selector. Oh, and that's a list of S3 buckets with optional prefix to include in logging. So my S3 selector then we need exclude management event sources. We don't need that. We don't want include management, and we don't need that. Oh, its default is true, so we want to set that to false. And read-write type is supposed to be read-write type write only. Here we go. And for the S3 selector, we need an a sequence of S3 event selectors, and that takes a bucket and an object prefix. So here I can say, I'll give it a list of S3 event selectors, and the one that I'm going to use is this one. With the bucket without an object prefix. So I'll give it a bucket. And in this case, I don't even need the bucket arn. I can just, I can just give it the bucket, the one up here, the one that we're creating up here. Let me pull that down a bit. So the bucket that we're creating up here, we're creating an S3 selector using that. I don't need that. Now let's try again. CDK Synth. Okay, so it works this time. And let me go all the way up to our trail. Here we go. This is our trail, as you can see. And it does have an event selector now. So it doesn't include management events. It uses a data resource of type S3 object, which is my bucket, the one that I'm defining in the stack. And it's not including management events. And it's got the read-write type write only. Now, let me have a look at CDK diff. CDK diff. Let's have a look at what it actually does. All right. So, and here you can see, and that is to the question that we had before, the difference between CDK and CloudFormation, or the benefit, the advantage of CDK on over CloudFormation really is, if you look at that, we just added a few lines of code. We just added these few lines of code to our original basic trail definition. And what it actually does, it creates a lot of things down here. It changes some things, it adds some things, and this is what's being created. So when I say CDK deploy, this is going to modify the existing CloudTrail, removing management events and adding S3 events, monitoring that specific bucket. Let's see. So it's updating the trail and, oh, okay. Okay, good. So I just remembered one thing. I might be using the wrong AWS account. Let me check that real quick. Amazon S3. No, not S3, CloudTrail. Cloudformation. That's what I'm looking for. Let's have a look at the stack. Okay, so I'm using the correct one, but it did a rollback. The reason why it did a rollback is because we've got an invalid request, invalid combination of parameters in event selectors. So something that I did doesn't really work yet. So when include management events is false, data resources must not be empty. So let's have a look. Is that this one? Let me see if that is the one, because we have that twice. We have include global service events and we have include management events. No, that's the wrong one. We do have management events, read write type 1, and we have include management events. And I want to know which one of the two is the one it's complaining about. Let me see. So right now, CDK is created a new CloudFormation template. Now it's creating a CloudFormation change set to understand what needs to be changed in CloudFormation. And now CloudFormation does the update. and it did not throw an error this time. Now let's have a look at the trail that we just updated. This is our trail, and it's not logging management events, and it is logging data events for our S3 bucket, and specifically the one that we defined, and write is enabled on that one. Then that's exactly what we want. So we can delete the other trail that we created manually. I created that last week. I just removed it now. So what do we have now? We have our S3 bucket. We have a CloudTrail log, which only monitors write events in this bucket. Now, the next thing we can set up is an event bridge rule. That fires every time something new is created inside of this bucket. And going back to Amazon Event Bridge, as I said last time, we did everything manually, and now today I'm using to recreate everything using CDK. Let's have a look at our event rules. I don't need this one. As you can see here, we created this rule last time. New file has been uploaded. Let's have a look at this rule. So what it does, it checks for AWS S3 events, so events common from AWS S3. It should specifically be put object events in a specific bucket. This is a bucket I created manually, but in our actual rule, we want the bucket that CDK created for us. So what we need is this event pattern and a specific target. In this case, this is a step function state machine that I haven't created yet. So I cannot set up this rule because it needs a target. However, I can try and set up a blank rule for now. Let's try that. So I can remove this. And just real quick, I'll do a quick add all git commit -m CloudTrail only monitors bucket event. Only monitors object write events in bucket. Here we go. Yeah, I didn't set git config. I'll do that real quick. Git config global username and git config global user email. There we go. All right, cool. So we have our trail, we have the bucket, we have the trail. So the next thing that I want to do, you don't need this. Can't. We don't need this anymore. Oh, we need it, but I'm not working on this right now. So the next thing I want to do really is create an event bridge rule, because now CloudTrail is monitoring the bucket, and whenever CloudTrail picks up a write object, a put object event, we want a rule to be triggered. For that, let's have a look at the documentation again. So we will look at AWS CDK, AWS Event Bridge. And that's inside of AWS Events. Let's have a look at the package. So here's a lot of information, most of which we don't need right now. What we do need is a rule. That's a specific rule on a repo. I want Actually, I don't want this one. I want, let me see real quick. Let me just check it real quick. I know it's hard to read when I scroll, but I'm just scanning real quick. Am I using the right thing? Am I using the... I'm not entirely sure. Event rule. Oh, okay. All right. So what we do need is the events rule, AWS events rule. And that's in the package AWS CDK, AWS events. So let's import the package. AWS events as events. Let's make sure we have that in our requirements text. And do a pip install -r requirements text. And this really is just the dependencies. We'll make sure to download all dependencies that we need for Python. Okay, there we go. So the dependency is installed, and I can go here and say, did I call it just events? Okay. Now I can say events dot rule call it put object rule event rule, and this again is a CDK construct. So what we need to do is add the stack, so the surrounding stack, as a scope using self, and give it a name. Put what did I do up there? I used put object rule, or I'll call it a little bit differently. New object has been created or uploaded. So this is an event rule. Now let's have a look. Have a look what happens if I try to just get a CDK diff. That's all I need. So it's not enough. Either event pattern or schedule must be defined. So what we need here is either an event pattern or a schedule, but this is not a scheduled rule. It should use an event pattern. So I need to set event pattern. Have a look. Here we go. This is our event pattern. Describes which events EventBridge routes to the specified target. So let's have a look at event pattern. This is here. It's in AWS events as well. So we need an event pattern. Events, event pattern. And the event pattern takes a number of things. Let's have a look. It takes a lot of things, but we don't need all of them. Let's have a look at the actual event that we manually built. We need a source, we need a detail type, and we need some detail information. Let's start with the source. So we do have the source, which is a sequence of strings. And I'll just add source. And that should be this one. It's a sequence of strings. So that's my source. The event needs to be from AWS S3. Next, I don't need the detail type. I think that's optional. Yeah, that's optional. Okay, next I need the detail itself. And the detail itself is a mapping. So let's give it a detail. And inside of the detail, I'll pull that here. That doesn't work. I'll pull that to the side real quick. Here we go. This is my event pattern. So what I'm going to do here is the detail should contain an event source. And that should be a list of strings, including S3 Amazon AWS.com. It should contain an event name. That's what we're looking for. And that should be put object. We're only looking for this one right now. It should be request, and it should have some request parameters. And the request parameters, again, is a map or a dictionary, including the bucket name. And the bucket name should be, that's a list again, the bucket name should be the name of the bucket we create up here, this one. So it should be from this bucket, the bucket name attribute. So let's have a look. I'll enlarge this real quick again. So our rule needs an event pattern with a source and some details. Let's have a look at this, if this works. I probably have a mistake somewhere. CDK if. Here we go. All right, we've got a new resource that's being created. Let's try CDK deploy. And let's have a look at this event rule. So it's updating the stack. It's creating the new object has been uploaded event rule. And once that's done, we can have a look at the rule itself. This takes a minute. It takes another minute. While we're at that, if you have any questions, please go ahead, let me know in the chat. So it's done. Let's have a look. We've got our event bridge. Here's the event bridge. My rules. This is the one I manually created. This is the one that has just been created by my stack. So my app stack, new object has been uploaded with a random identifier in the end. Let's go in here. It is enabled. And it does have an event pattern. Now let's compare this event pattern with the one that we have here. So we do have a source. We do have detail with an event source, which is this one, with an actual event name, which is this one, and the request parameter bucket name, which has my specific bucket. The only thing that's missing, right here we have a target, right here we don't have one. So to add a target, we actually need to create a target. And this target will be a step function state machine. Oh, here we go. Will be a step function state machine. So to have a look at that, let's have a look at step function, because last time we already created a state machine, which is this one, process new file. In the next step, we will recreate that using CDK as well. So here's process new file. And let's have a look at the process itself. So as you can see right here, it doesn't do much. It has a starting point, then it has a placeholder, which is just a placeholder state that doesn't do anything. It takes what it gets in the input and sends it to the output, and then it has an end. And here's the JSON definition of this state machine. And I created that really just as a placeholder before we implement the actual application. So the actual logic, what should be done whenever a new file is being uploaded. I just created a placeholder to get everything set up. And what I'm going to do now in CDK, again, is add this step function workflow. To do that, I'll first add my object rule, git commit add upload object rule for now without target. There we go. So the next thing we need is a step function state machine. Let's have a look at the documentation again. AWS. Here we go. Step functions. Looking at the package, here's an example. Here's a job that invokes a Lambda function. Here's a wait task. Here's a fail task. And a couple of other things. And all the way down here, we have a state machine that takes a definition. This is the definition, and this definition consists of all these tasks. We don't need to do all that up here. All we need to do right now really is create a really simple state machine definition and create a state machine from it. I'm going to start with the state machine itself. So let's just pick that piece of code, add it here. We'll call it, I called this one process new file. So I'll call this one process new file as well. The timeout duration in minutes. So this sets the timeout of the state machine to 5 minutes. We don't even need that much. Could be even less. Yeah, I'll set it to 1 minute for now. So if there's an error in the state machine and it's for instance caught in an infinite loop, it will time out after some time. So here's my state machine. It needs a definition. Oh, give me a second. We first need to import the package. So sfn AWS step functions. So we need to add AWS step functions as sfn. And we also need to add that to our requirements. And do a pip install R real quick, just to install the step functions. Okay, cool. So down here, we've got sfn state machine with a definition. And the definition should be the following. Let's have a look at this definition. So we've got a submit job. That's somewhere up here. We don't want to do that. Next, wait something, next something, next something, next something. when there's conditions, all kinds of things. Otherwise, okay, we don't need all of that. All we need is a basic definition. Let's have a look. Where are we? State machine. And this takes a definition. And the definition, I think, is of type task. And it will take me a minute to find this out. So we've got step functions tasks. Let me think real quick. That's deprecated. Input parameters, timeout, scope ID, task, input path, output path, parameters. Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the package overview again. Maybe we can find something in the examples. Here, this is okay. This is a very simple state machine. All right, let's take that. So we'll just use a pass state. And if I look at that, this actually is a pass state. So the placeholder is of type pass. So what I can do here is create a new pass state. Definition is sfn pass, and I called it placeholder. I'll call that placeholder as well. So my definition is this one. And because that's so simple, I'm just gonna remove that here, and see what happens. Now let's have a look. Let's do a CDK diff. This should create the entire state machine for me. There's an error. Duration is not defined. I don't need that right now because we have a default. This single command really is going to create a whole ton of things. It creates a state machine with a pass state, but it also creates a new role because this state machine needs a role to get permissions to do something in the future. The permissions are, there will be no permissions right now, but there will a role will be created to add permissions once we need some. So let's do a CDK deploy. And this is gonna have me double check if I want these permission changes to be deployed. And that's nice about CDK, because CDK really, if you ever change something that might change permissions, it will ask you to specifically confirm that you want these changes to be done. And this is a nice security feature. So it's deploying my new role. And the state machine depends on the role. So it's deploying the role first. And once the role has been deployed, it's going to deploy a state machine. Here we go. So now it's creating the state machine, and that's already done. And everything is done. I think, yes. So now let's have a look at our state machines. Oh, it may be that my session has, give me 1 second, expired. Yep, my session has expired. Oh, that's the wrong one. So here we go. Okay, cool. So here are my two new state machines. We've got here's my one new state machine. The old one that I manually created, and you can see I created that as an express state machine. And over here, I created the standard state machine. We can change that in a second. The second thing that you can see, this is writing logs. This one is not writing logs. But let's have a look at the state machine definition. And as you can see, it is similar to the other one, or it's basically the same. It has start, it has a placeholder state, and it has an end. If I format the JSON, you can see it looks exactly like the other one. The only differences here are it does not, if I go back to state machines, it is a standard state machine, which is a little more expensive, but it can also run much longer. It can run up to a year. But in this case, I only want an express state machine. And I think an express state machine can run up to 5 minutes. It's much, it is very inexpensive, and it is extremely quick. These long-term state machines that can run up to a year are well, they are more heavyweight. This is really lightweight. So let's make ours an express state machine. To do that, let's have a look at state machines again. State machine. Right here, we've got a state machine type. And the state machine type can be either express or standard. So let's, yeah, that locked me out because my session had expired. So here we go. So here we say state machine type. And that's step functions state machine type. I already imported step functions, state machine type express. Let's do a CDK diff. Here we go. So it sets the state machine type to express. I'm going to deploy that real quick. And while this is deploying, I'm going to have a look at how the logging works. Here we go. We need a log options. Default is no logging, but I would like it to be logged so I can troubleshoot. So I'm going to add, while this is deploying. Oh, it's already deployed. Let's check that real quick. This should have been changed to express. Going to reload. Huh. Okay. No logging, no executions, type standard. That's interesting. That's interesting. Good thing I looked. So that's of type standard instead of express. But I said it should be express, and it also said express here. Let's go do a CDK Synth and have a look at the state machine definition here. Process new file, role, process new file. This is my state machine. It's got a role, it's got a definition string, and it's got a state machine type. Am I missing something here for the experts on the stream? I set the state machine type to express, but it is deploying it as standard. Let me do a hard reload. Maybe it's a caching issue. Huh. Oh. Do you know something? It could be that once I have created it, it cannot be changed. That could be the issue. Let's try that. Let me try removing it. So I'm just gonna remove that. When I say CDK diff now, it's gonna remove the entire state machine, CDK diff. So it will destroy the state machine and also the role. Let's say CDK deploy. And once that's, while that's deploying, I will be back in a second. I'll be right back. Here we go. All right, so it has been deployed, and it has been destroyed. So the state machine itself should be gone now. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's gone. So what I'm gonna do now is just redeploy this state machine, but this time as a state machine of type express. So let's do that. CDK, oh, I need to save that. Let's do that, CDK deploy. So, and if you have any questions, please let me know. So yes, it's asking me if I want to deploy, create a new role. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat. And just to give you a little bit of context, while this is deploying, what we're doing here right now, we're using AWS CDK to create a bucket. And whenever something new is being put into the bucket, whenever we have a file or an object that's put into the bucket, we want to trigger a state machine. This state machine right now is really simple. It has a start point, it has a pass state, a placeholder, and it has an end. So whenever somebody uploads something to the bucket, we want to run a process. The process hasn't yet been defined. Right now, we are in the middle of creating this state machine. Okay, cool. It has been deployed. Let's have a look. Here we go. And this time it's an express state machine. So it really needs to be recreated. You cannot change the state machine type. So the second thing really is we want to add logs. Let's have a look at how this is defined in here. Logging. So we're logging everything. We include execution data, and we're adding a logging into a defined CloudWatch log group. So let's go back to state machines. We want to implement the same thing for this one using CDK. For this, we're going to add a logs argument, and that give me a second. State machine logs. This needs log options. Let's have a look at log options. Log options is step functions log options. So SFN state machine log options. And in here, we need a destination. We need, if we want to include execution data, and we need the log level, and the default log level will be error. So I want to include execution data. I want to set the log level to all. I want to log everything. So that's log level all. That's SFN dot. Here we go. SFN log level all. And now we need a destination. And the destination is supposed to be an ilog group. So destination. Okay, let me check one thing real quick. So that's not optional. I need to set it. I need to set it. It doesn't do it on its own. And the ilog group is in AWS logs. Metric name. Let me check log groups in this. Let me check it in this one real quick. And that's the log group. And that's the log group. Doesn't have any metric filters, doesn't have any subscription filters, doesn't have anything really. So let's destination equals. And now we need a log group. Log stream, log group. And log group is in AWS logs. So we need to import AWS logs. AWS logs. Here. Install the dependencies. So our log group is supposed destination is logs log group, and the log group again is a construct. So we need the scope. We need a name. What are we going to call it? What did we call it here? Process new file logs. That's my log group. Let me check if I need anything else. Log group, retention, infinity. Infinity, where does that come from? Infinity comes from, let me see, log group, retention days. Retention takes from, okay, logs, retention days, infinite. So retention days, infinite. Let's put that on a new line real quick. So there we go. So we do have a log group. We create a log group that retains the logs forever. Now let's see, CDK diff. See if anything is missing. Here we go. So as you can see here with the new log options, it's going to set up a few new things. It will set up a new log group. It will set up an IAM policy because the state machine needs to be able to write into CloudWatch to write those logs. And it's adding a new log configuration to the state machine, and it has a dependency on that policy. And we also have some permission changes, as you can see up here. It will allow the state machine's role, that is the role that will be attached to the state machine. It allows to create a log delivery, delete, describe, get log delivery, and do things. What it doesn't allow is to actually write logs. So we will have to add that to CDK deploy. And the nice thing about that, it's a little complicated right now because we have to set up everything. But once that's done, we can just create a package out of it and reuse it whenever we need. So we can create our own construct or our own library that we can reuse in other places. So whenever we want our state machines to have certain permissions, we can just reuse what we're doing here. So it's setting everything up now. I can see there's, pull that over here so my video is not in the way. All right, so let's have a look. We changed the logging properties. Okay, so now you can see this. The logging is set up to the CloudWatch log group. But I think it won't be able to write any logs, but I'm not entirely sure. Let's have a look at this state machine, which is using a role. Now I'm going to compare this role with the other role that has been created as part of our deployment. Let's have a look. So this has a number of policies. This has CloudWatch logs delivery full access policy. Yeah, so that's what we had right now, create log delivery and so forth. Yeah, and apparently that's all it needs. And yeah, it looks good. I don't need X-ray in my case. Actually, it looks like that's all I need. Okay, cool. Now let's try something. Let's go in here and run the state machine. Start an execution. And I'm just going to put some test payload here. Start execution. So it worked. Let's have a look at the CloudWatch logs. And we actually do have the execution information in our log, so it does work. Let's see. We have execution started. We have pass state entered, pass state exited, execution succeeded. So if we look at the step function itself, here's our state, start. So that's the pass state. Let me have a look at, just real quick, at the, oh, I didn't set up X-ray. So yeah, I didn't set up X-ray. Doesn't matter. Never mind. Never mind. Looking at the logging, we can see the execution had started. It went into the pass state. It went out of the pass state, and the execution succeeded. So the state machine works, and the going back here, we have the bucket. We have the bucket. We have the event rule. We have the state machine. The bucket triggers the event rule. The only thing that's missing is this one. So whenever it's triggered, it should start the state machine. And we are just going to do that by adding the state machine as a target to our event rule. So let me pick that up, move it up here real quick. Move it up here and call it, this is my state machine. And in my event rule, I think I can simply say event rule target. Where's my events? Here's my events. My event rule. I can simply say targets, and that takes the sequence of targets. Let's check that. Event pattern. I'm gonna put my event target up here, just target. And that's a list of targets. And my target can be, I will target the ID of the target that will be attached to the rule. Let's have a look at the overview. It's some example code. Targets, code build project. So we do have event targets. So we have AWS events targets. Going to import that real quick. Add that to my requirements. Install all dependencies. Here we go. All right. So we have our targets. So look at the documentation. How was that? Oh, it doesn't even need a list. I just say target dot targets, and the targets that I have are SFN state machine. A target of type state machine, and that takes the state machine. So I simply say targets SFN state machine. I can't type. It SFN state machine, and this just takes my state machine, which is this one. Right? I think. Yeah, I think that should be it. Let's see. Have a look. CDK diff. Okay, I got an okay, target. The rule has a target. Is it targets? Rule is target. So what's my mistake? Keyword argument target. So the rule. Am I? So let's see. We've got our rule, and the rule takes a target. But it's, let's have a look at the rule down here. Oh, it has targets. Okay, targets. And I think targets really takes a sequence off. Yeah, so that's here. Here we go. Try again. Yay! All right, so we do have new permission changes. We do have new IAM changes. So there's going to be the role of the rule. The role of the rule will be allowed to start the execution of the state machine. And event bridge will be allowed to assume this role. Okay, cool. So we've got a new role, we've got a new policy, and we've got a changed rule. Okay, CDK deploy. Yes, I do want to deploy. And once that works, I think everything should be set up so that when I upload something to the bucket, it should automatically run the state machine. I hope it does. So it's creating all the necessary resources. It's creating the policy. It's updating the rule. And once the rule is updated, let's go back to event bridge. The rule should have a target. That's done. So the rule, let's have a look at the rules. Here's this rule. And the rule does have an actual target, which is my State machine. This one. Look something. Okay. This one, the new one. So once that's done, I'm going to go to S3. I'm going to go to S3, find my bucket, this one. And whenever something is uploaded to this bucket, I want this state machine to run, right? Let's check it out. All is deployed. I'm going to upload. Let me have a look. I've got something somewhere I'm sure I can upload. Let's upload. Yeah, I haven't prepared anything. I'm sorry. Let's just upload, I don't know, a picture of myself. A picture of myself. Where am I? Here we go. Here we go. So let's just upload a picture of myself. So I'm gonna drop this here. I'm going to upload it. Successfully uploaded. So the picture is here now. And now when I look at the state machine logging, here's the log group. I'll look into the log group. We do have a log stream from 1648, which is exactly now. And as you can see, execution started, pass state entered, pass state exited, execution succeeded. And now let's have a look at the input. Here's the encoded JSON input, and it contains, among others, my file name, I hope. Here we go. This is exactly what I just uploaded. Avatar white background PNG. Avatar white background PNG. So now everything worked. I'm going to go back to the drawing board real quick. So we do have an S3 bucket. We do have a CloudTrail log, which explicitly monitors write events in this bucket. So whenever a file is being put into the bucket, CloudTrail will put an event on Event Engine. Right here, I have a rule, an event rule, which checks for a few things. Is it a put object event, most importantly? And if it is, it triggers our state machine. And this is rather complicated. Because it's complicated, I'm going to clear it all. What's happening here right now is we have a bucket. Whenever something gets written into the bucket, we have an event that even if it gets triggered, it will invoke a new state machine. And this is our, oh, and this is not pretty at all. This is our, give me a second. This is our, here we go. That looks much better. This basically is our event-driven application that includes its own bucket, it includes its own event bridge rule, it includes the log and everything, and it includes the state machine. So going back here, what we have here right now is a lot of moving parts, But these can, and this would be the next step, these can all be cleaned up and put into separate files and maybe even put into a library or a construct so that it can be reused for certain purposes. So let's just recap. What do we have? We have our bucket. We have the cloud. We have CloudTrail monitoring the bucket, including the event selector. We have a state machine that should run whenever something new is being put in the bucket. And we have our event rule that gets triggered whenever something is being put in the bucket. And everything is stuck together. And Cloudformation, or CDK and then Cloudformation, takes care of putting everything together. So what I can do now is really, I could just change my account, say whatever, AWS. I could say export AWS account and use a different profile that I may have stored on my machine, could use a different profile and could do a CDK deploy, and it would just deploy the whole thing as it is into a different account. And that's what makes infrastructure as code so great, because it is completely independent of a specific account. It really helps rolling out your infrastructure, repeating, multiplying, and automating your infrastructure as code. And that's why it's called infrastructure as code. I think that was quite a lot. We ran for about 2 hours today. It was a lot of basics. It was a lot of looking up stuff in the documentation. I know the documentation isn't the best of all, specifically for Python. It is it's easy to find things, but it is really hard because everything is being put into one page and you have to scroll a lot. But once you get used to it, you will find your way around quite quickly. And as I said before, CDK does not only work with Python, you can also use it with your favorite language like Java or .NET or TypeScript, for that matter. This is the TypeScript reference. Yeah, I think for today, that should be it. If you have any questions, I'm going to be online for another few minutes. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to commit that real quick. Git add git commit all moving parts up and plugged together. Oh, there's an M missing, but that doesn't matter now. I know what I mean. So everything's set up and plugged together. After this stream, I'm probably going to clean that up a bit to make this file a little more readable. What I'm going to do in the next stream, I'm not sure when I'm going to stream. Really, it might be next week, Wednesday or Friday, but I'm going to set something up on YouTube, and you can also. So if you subscribe to this channel, you will get noticed. If I said when I set up in this stream, also it would be great if you could like this video, because that really helps. Well, triggering the algorithm, making sure that other people find my AWS content as well. What you also can do is find me on Twitter at, that's supposed to be an at, I'll do that, TRAUB. And you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook under my name. And I'm going to notify you whenever I'm going to set up a new stream. So what I'm going to do next time is figure out what the actual application should be, because right now it's all just demo stuff, just a bucket and an empty step function and everything. What I'm going to do until next time is figure out what the application actually should do, and then we will implement some actual application logic inside of the step function. Cool. So thank you everyone for joining. I hope it was interesting. I hope I was able to explain things in a way that they were understandable. It's a lot of things, it's a lot of moving parts, but I hope I was able to give you a little bit of insight into how things work together in AWS, and also how the AWS CDK can be used to build your infrastructure as code on AWS. So thank you so much. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I will be online again next week. Take care. Goodbye.